Hello and welcome to your mindful watering demo. So our first S then is schedule. Now we're all busy and it's really easy, and don't get me wrong, I've got a newborn at the minute, so I've definitely been guilty of not watering my plants, and as a result I've lost some, which is a bit gutting. So in normal times and what I am starting to implement now as she's getting a little less needy and can actually be left with her dad for a cuddle, is doing a schedule for my watering when I plan to do it. Now there's two elements to this. The first part is decide when you're going to do the watering. So are you going to do it first thing in the morning, maybe with a cup of tea, or are you going to do it of an evening once kids are in bed, if you've got kids, and you kind of use it as a bit of a decompress at the end of the day. So the reason we do it early morning is so, or late, is so the sun doesn't scorch the plant's leaves, okay? Because when you get water on the leaves, which will inevitably happen, if you did it at midday, if you were watering at midday at lunchtime, say for example, when the water evaporates off the leaves, it's gonna potentially like scorch the leaves. So that's why we do it morning or evening. So decide when you want to do it, morning or evening, and make a commitment to yourself. Link it to another habit. So having a cup of tea, for example, or the minute the kids are in bed, straight outside, do some watering, okay? The second part of schedule then is to decide what bed you're going to water when. So when we did planning your mindful garden, we gave names to each of our growing areas. So mine is sort of labelled with letters, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, for example. And I don't try and water them all every day, because actually you'd be spending hours doing it if you were to give them the right amount of water that they need. So what's a much better way to do it is just do one bed an evening and give it a really, really good soak. So what I tend to do is I have these soaker hoses in my bed, which you can see here. It's just a black length of hose. It's got an inlet valve there. You just lay it in the bed, and this part of the hose has got loads of little holes in. So what you do is you take a normal hose, like this one, which you might use around the garden, and you just click it in, she says, and then you turn on your normal hose, and this will do the watering for you. So from a time saving point of view, it's great. I think I've got about 4 or 5 beds with these in. I need to buy some more of them actually, because I've created more beds since, and I can just decide which, I know because of my schedule that I've already planned which bed I'm doing. I come out, I click it in, I turn the tap on, and I let it soak, and then that gives me time then to go and use my watering can to fill up from the water butt to water my seedlings or any plants that I've got growing that need a watering can, as opposed to soak hose if they're not planted in the ground, for example. So that's how my schedule works. Now obviously plants that are in pots generally are going to need a bit more water, so what I find myself doing is I rotate the beds with the soaker hoses on a daily basis, but most days, or at least every other day, I am watering my plant, like certainly seedlings if it's hot, and plants in pots as well. So just bear that in mind. But the great thing about those soaker hoses is they save you the time, so you can be leaving them to water whilst you're going to do the other plants. So the next S then is soil. So I'm going to show you here with this plant what you want to do. I'm going to use this small watering can to demo it actually. What you want to do is you want to aim, rather than aiming on the top here like that and getting the water all over the leaves, because that's not really where the plant needs it. Most plants do not take water in from their leaves, and this is why sometimes you think to yourself, oh, it's fine, it's rained, my plants will be okay. But actually, if it hasn't rained heavily, that water won't have made its way down to where the plant needs it, which is its roots. So what we always try and do is we always try and water straight into the soil. Hopefully you can see that there. So you're getting right down into the plant and you're watering directly onto the soil. And you want to give that a really, really good soak. Now, if you are watering your plants that are planted in the ground, when you planted them, you would have created that moat around them. And what that will do is that will mean that the water you aim at the base of the plant, at the soil, will collect in that moat, and it will slowly trickle down to where the roots are, rather than running off and down towards other plants and into the rest of your bed. Now you might be able to see here I've got this plant in a pot, This is really a really good method for if your plant's got a bit dry and you know, maybe you've been away for the weekend or you've missed a couple of days watering and you really want the plant to sort of sit and soak up its goodness. Just pop it in like an old empty takeaway container, or if you've got a few plants, you can get these gravel trays and you can stack a load of plants in there and you can give them a really good water, always through the top so it goes down through the soil, but just leave them to sit for a little bit and then they can take up some of the water from underneath as well and really rehydrate that soil. These gravel trays actually will come in really handy when we talk about feeding plants, which I think is either next month or the month after. So that's how you're doing that. And then the last S then is to really soak them. So you don't just want to kind of tickle each plant with a little bit of water, you want to really give them a good drink, and you know, really rehydrate that soil around them. And like I said, the moat is going to help you to do that because it's going to keep that. So you almost want to fill that moat completely with water, almost create like a puddle, and then let it slowly sort of work its way through the soil. And then sometimes if it's been really dry, it might disappear quite quickly. You could always top it up and give it another good soak. So really fill that moat up twice if you can. So yeah, so that's your 3 methods. Then in terms of you know, making it a mindful activity, there's a few things you can introduce here. So the first one is to really notice the colour change in the soil. So depending on what soil you're growing on, you might either have a kind of very yellowy soil if you're a sandy soil, or you might have a kind of like almost a grey sort of, like the soil that goes a bit grey when it's dry. That's certainly my colour. It's kind of like a browny grey, and I've just got kind of an average loamy soil. But when I pour water onto it, it will go brown or almost black. So really notice that colour change. Just, you know, you're really trying to engage the senses here. So rather than just kind of flinging the water around and just getting on with it, really engage yourself in the activity. As you pour, notice that colour change from grey to dark brown. Also, focus on the sound of the water hitting the ground as you pour. So I'm just going to pour this one here. So hopefully, this is my big watering can here. I'm just going to turn my rose the other way up. There we go. And I'm just going to pour it and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. So you've got that lovely kind of running water sound, which is so relaxing, especially at the end of a long day. So really try and engage your hearing as well. And then the last thing, and this, you won't always be able to access this, but if it's been a really hot sunny day and you're watering at the end of the day, you will be able to really tune in your sense of smell to smell that petrichor, which is the smell of, you know, when it's been a really hot day and then it rains and you get that lovely smell. That is called petrichor. Now, by watering, you can create that naturally. So obviously it's lovely when it rains and you can go outside and smell that lovely smell, but you can basically manufacture that by doing your watering. So really, if it's been really hot and you know, it's still sort of warm in the air, really focusing on the smell that comes out when the water contacts the soil and you get that lovely kind of earthy petrichor smell. Then just one last little tip, and this is in terms of watering seedlings. So if you've got a rose like this, and you are watering seedlings, obviously this is quite heavy water flow for your seedlings, so you could dislodge them. So a really simple way to make the flow a little lighter is to turn your rose, turned it a bit too far now, upside down, so the holes are on this top edge, and then when you pour, you see how much lighter the flow is. So you can pour it, nearly getting my camera wet there, so you can pour it over your seedlings and that the flow is less likely to dislodge any sort of delicate seedlings that are there. But I still, or not so much, so for seedlings, obviously when you do seeds you always water from the bottom, but seedlings, I'm talking about little plants which are still quite delicate, so we need to go a bit careful with them so we don't dislodge their roots. Alternatively, you can buy one of these little hand watering cans which are quite good, which you can obviously either use without your rose or with your rose. But even so, with this, you can still turn the rose upside down and it does a lighter flow again. So yeah, I hope that is helpful. So when it comes to whatever you're watering, really give them a good drink. But if it is seedlings, just go a bit careful and make sure you change your water flow on your watering can so you're not dislodging anything and kind of making it harder for them.